The last text I got from my son said, "Heading to the mall with Caleb. Back soon." 30 minutes later, he was gone, killed while pushing his cousin out of the path of a speeding car. And while I was in the hospital, holding his still warm hand, my sister was live streaming her birthday party, popping champagne, laughing, dancing in filters. I'm Julia. I'm a mom. And I lost my son that day, not just to tragedy, but to a family that chose celebration over compassion. Would you forgive them? Or would you cut ties with the people who didn't show up when it mattered most? Tell me what you would have done. I still remember the smell of vanilla pancakes that morning. There was something unusually soft in the way the batter sizzled against the pan, something tender in the way the light spilled across the countertop. If I had known it would be the last breakfast I'd ever make for Aiden, I would have added whipped cream, maybe even a side of strawberries the way he used to love when he was little. But of course, I didn't know. None of us ever do. The sun was already streaming through the kitchen window, brushing against the faded lace curtains that fluttered slightly in the breeze. It was early May, just a few weeks before Memorial Day, and the kind of spring morning that almost made you forget the world could ever be cruel. I flipped the last pancake onto the plate and turned off the burner just as Aiden came down the stairs. His 6'2" frame filled the doorway, the navy blue varsity jacket hanging off his shoulders like it was made for someone older. He tugged slightly at the collar of his basketball uniform, then loosened the tie he wore for game days. It was a small thing, but he always kept that ritual, just like his dad had. That thought caught in my throat for a moment. "Smells good," he said, grinning as he made his way to the table. "Pancakes look rounder than usual. Are you trying to impress someone?" I laughed softly. "Don't flatter yourself, superstar. They just came out right for once." He winked and sat down, forking into the stack like he hadn't eaten in days. He always did eat fast on game days, nerves and excitement wrapped into one teenage appetite. "Semifinals today," he mumbled through a bite. "Riverside High. Gonna be a tough one." I nodded and poured his coffee, 2 sugars, no cream. "You nervous?" He shrugged. "Kinda, but I heard scouts might show. So yeah, I really want to win." Before I could answer, tiny footsteps padded into the kitchen. Caleb, Amanda's 8-year-old son, entered, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. His small frame swam inside a Pokemon t-shirt, and he clutched a half-eaten Eggo waffle in one hand. "Morning, Aunt Julia," he mumbled. "Good morning, sweetheart. Want some orange juice?" He nodded. As I poured, he stared at Aiden, then said something that stopped both of us in our tracks. "Why do you do everything for me?" he asked quietly. "You're not even my brother." Aiden paused, looked over, and then smiled in that gentle way of his, the kind that melted sharp things. "I just like taking care of people," he said. I turned my back to them, not because I didn't want to see, but because my heart couldn't quite hold all that grace in that moment. That's the thing about Aiden. He didn't need to declare anything. He simply was. Kindness wasn't a performance to him. It was second nature. My phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hands and glanced at it. "Dr. Khalid. Reminder. Follow-up labs overdue. Call us today." I locked the screen quickly and slid the phone into the drawer before anyone could notice. I hadn't told Aiden yet about the blood work. I wasn't ready. It was probably nothing, but that's what I told myself last month too. Just then, the ringtone changed. "Amanda." I sighed before answering. "Julia!" Her voice was as bright as a shopping mall at Christmas. "Quick question, should I go with silver streamers or the glittery ones for the dessert table? To match the cake from Macy's? I'm not sure. Silver maybe?" I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. She continued on, listing photo backdrops and posing ideas as if she were planning the Met Gala, not a birthday dinner at Olive Garden. She didn't ask how I was. She never did. When I finally hung up, Caleb was now focused on drawing something on a napkin with a red marker. Aiden had already cleared his plate and was rinsing it, a habit he picked up without me ever asking. Before I could thank him, the landline rang. It was Nancy. "Julia, can you pick up Amanda's birthday cake from Macy's today?" she asked without even a greeting. "I have work, Mom." "Work? Julia, this is Amanda's 40th. You should really be more supportive. Family should come first, you know." My jaw clenched. I am being supportive, just not at Macy's. A beat of silence, then a scoff. "Fine, I suppose I'll figure it out, as always." She hung up. Aiden walked back in, shaking his head. "She really said that? I didn't realize you were listening." "I always listen, Mom," he said, "even when I wish I didn't." We both laughed, but mine felt hollow. He slung his backpack over his shoulder. "Hey, I can take Caleb to school. It's on the way. I'll even help pick out Amanda's gift after the game." "You sure?" "Yeah. He likes riding with me anyway. Right, bud?" Caleb nodded solemnly, sliding his drawing toward Aiden. It was a stick figure basketball player holding hands with a smaller kid. Underneath, in crooked letters, he had written, "My hero." I had to blink hard. Aiden took the drawing, folded it neatly, and tucked it into his pocket. "Thanks, buddy. That means a lot." I walked them to the door. Caleb skipped ahead, humming under his breath. Aiden lingered for a moment, checking his phone. I touched his sleeve. "Be careful today." He looked up, amused. "I'm always careful." "I know. I just don't know why, but just be." His smile softened. He leaned down and kissed my cheek. "Always." And then he was gone. The breeze through the open door smelled like lilac and promise. But even as I closed it behind them, something in my chest didn't sit right, like a page in a book turning itself before you're ready. And though I wouldn't realize it until much later, that morning, filled with pancakes and sunlight, was the last time our home would ever feel whole. They were at Olive Garden, posting boomerangs with clinking champagne glasses and flashing filters. Meanwhile, I was at home, sitting on the couch with my legs tucked under a worn blanket, staring at the digital scoreboard on my phone. North Hills versus Riverside, 68-65. My son's name was bolded in the game roster. 23 points, 9 assists, 4 steals. He did it, again. The living room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the fridge and the faint creak of the old heating vents. I had kept the game link open on the school's Facebook page, watching a shaky live stream posted by a student volunteer. There was no commentator, no background music, just the squeak of sneakers on polished floors and occasional whistles from the referee. But somehow, it felt more real that way. I could see Aiden running, hear Caleb's tiny cheers echo from somewhere near the bleachers. I imagined his small hands waving wildly with each of Aiden's baskets. The pink invitation on the fridge caught the sunlight again. Glitter tape. Amanda's birthday bash, 40 and fabulous, with fancy font, a gold border, and a poorly photoshopped martini glass. I turned my head away. Nancy had called again earlier. I didn't answer. I took another sip of lukewarm tea, fingers tracing the rim of the mug. My phone buzzed with a new video notification, this one from Amanda's Instagram. She was spinning slowly in front of a mirror, wearing a sequined dress that looked like it had its own social calendar. The caption read, "Birthday glow, hidden diff. 40 flirty, thriving Olive Garden queen." Somewhere in the background, you could hear Nancy directing someone to move the balloon arch 2 inches to the left. I tapped out of the app and pressed my phone to my chest, just for a moment. At the gym, the game had ended. The crowd roared. The screen shook slightly as students jumped in excitement. Aiden's teammates lifted him for a split second, his arms raised in a quiet triumph. He didn't look directly at the camera, but I knew. That half smile meant he knew I was watching, even if I wasn't there in person, and that meant everything. Aiden's phone vibrated in his pocket just as he and Caleb stepped out of the school's rear exit. The parking lot shimmered under the afternoon sun. He wiped the sweat off his forehead with his jersey sleeve and read the screen. "Amanda, don't be late, don't ruin the mood. Cake cutting is at 6. He let out a slow breath. "You okay?" Caleb asked, tugging at his hand. "Yeah," Aiden replied. "Just your mom being your mom." They headed toward Macy's, a short walk away. Caleb was skipping beside him, humming the SpongeBob theme song under his breath. "What kind of gift are we getting?" the boy asked. "You'll see. I did my homework," Aiden said with a smirk. Inside the store, the perfume section sparkled with glass shelves and over-enthusiastic lighting. Aiden scanned the displays quickly, eyes landing on a familiar pink and white box, Rose de Minuit. He'd seen Amanda post it on her story last week with a caption that read, "My forever scent." He picked up the tester and sprayed a little on the card, handing it to Caleb. "Smells fancy," Caleb whispered, sniffing it like it was magic. "You think she'll like it?" he asked. Aiden paused, then shrugged. "It's not really about her liking it. It's the thought that counts. You and I, we thought about it. That's what matters." Caleb nodded as if he understood, even though he probably didn't fully, but he'd remember this moment. That much, I'm sure of. Back at home, I folded the laundry with one hand and checked my phone with the other. Still no response from Nancy to the text I had sent. "Sorry I couldn't help today. Just not feeling great." No response from Amanda either. Not even a read receipt. That didn't surprise me. I had become background static in their world, a supporting character in their perfectly filtered lives. It's strange how families can sit at the same table, eat the same meals, share the same childhood, and yet drift into entirely different orbits. I turned the TV on to distract myself. Reruns of a home makeover show played softly. A couple cried as they walked into their freshly remodeled kitchen. "This is more than we ever dreamed of," the husband whispered. I muted the volume. The microwave clock blinked 4:53 p.m. A notification popped up. Aiden, heading to the mall with Caleb. Back soon. I smiled, touched the screen gently. That boy had a way of grounding me without even trying. I typed back quickly, "Be careful. Don't let Caleb talk you into too much ice cream." But the message just sat there, delivered, never read. I would replay that moment in my head for months afterward. The exact wording, the timestamp, even the emoji. I'd wonder if I should have said more, or something different, or called instead. But regret has a cruel habit of showing up late, just when it's least useful. At Macy's checkout, the cashier wrapped the perfume in a glossy white bag and handed it over with a smile. "That's a great choice," she said. "Very popular lately." "Hope so," Aiden replied. Caleb tugged on his sleeve. "Can we get ice cream now?" "Only if you promise to pick something small." "I'll get the kiddie cone. 2 scoops." Aiden laughed. "That's not how math works, dude." They walked toward the food court, passing groups of teenagers dressed up for prom shopping. Music played from a speaker nearby, some pop song I didn't recognize but had probably heard in passing a dozen times. Aiden was still in his uniform, but he didn't seem to mind the stares. Caleb skipped ahead, pointing to the neon sign of their favorite ice cream shop. It was all so normal, so wonderfully, painfully ordinary. Back at home, I set the dinner table just for myself, a plate of leftovers. The house was too quiet. Even Caleb's usual clutter felt like an echo in the room. I turned on the porch light, out of habit. The breeze came through the window again. It carried the scent of blooming azaleas this time. Or maybe it was just memory. I walked past the fridge, caught the sparkle of that pink invitation again, and for the first time, I ripped it off the door and tossed it in the trash, just as my phone buzzed. Aiden, heading to the mall with Caleb. Back soon. I exhaled slowly, holding the phone close, unaware, of course, that it would be the last message I'd ever read from him while he was alive. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something in my chest already knew. This wasn't a telemarketer. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. "Mrs. Bennett?" the voice asked. Male, young, unsure. "Yes? This is Officer Daniels from the Pittsburgh Police Department. Your son, Aiden Bennett, has been involved in an accident at Ross Park Mall." Everything stopped. I stood there, the tea kettle screeching behind me, but I couldn't hear it anymore, just the sound of my breath and the officer's voice. He's being transported to UPMC Passavant, emergency surgery. He was protecting another child. We're doing everything we can. I don't remember hanging up. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I only remember the silence that followed, so thick it rang louder than the siren that had begun to wail down my street. I drove like the world was burning behind me. Traffic lights turned red. I didn't care. Horns blared. The world felt suddenly too fast, too sharp. Every bump in the road felt like it cracked something deeper inside me. Memories surged in fragments. Aiden's laugh over breakfast. Caleb asking, "Why do you do everything for me?" The smell of vanilla pancakes. That awful pink invitation. The closer I got to the hospital, the more my hands trembled. I gripped the wheel tighter, murmuring the only words I could hold on to. "Please, please, please." The emergency room was chaos. People rushing, machines beeping, a woman crying in a nearby chair. A nurse met me at the door and took me down a hallway that felt far too long. At the end stood a young man with tired eyes and a white coat stained with something dark and red. Blood. "My sons? Mrs. Bennett?" he asked softly. I nodded. My throat wouldn't open. "I'm Dr. Velasquez. Your son is in surgery now. He arrived with massive internal injuries, multiple cardiac arrests, we're doing everything we can." "Can I see him?" I whispered. "Not yet, but I'll let you know the moment." He stopped speaking. A red light above the surgery doors began flashing. Another nurse ran in. Dr. Velasquez looked at me, his jaw tight. "Please wait here." And then he disappeared. I sat on the cold bench outside the operating room. The world slowed to a crawl. My phone buzzed again, and I checked it instinctively. It was a notification from Instagram. "Amanda Taylor Beauty is live now." My finger hovered. I shouldn't have clicked, but I did. The screen lit up with glittering balloons and a camera panning across a long dinner table. Amanda, in her shimmering dress, stood beside a waiter holding a champagne bottle. She was laughing. "Okay, it's time. Pop that bottle." A loud pop burst through the speakers. Laughter. Cheers. "To Amanda!" someone shouted. The screen froze on Amanda's face as she beamed, clinking her glass with Nancy's. The caption read, "$, my day $, 40 and fabulous $, party time." I looked at the time, 5:12 p.m. I closed the app and turned off the phone. I stared at my hands, willing them to stop shaking. Moments later, the surgery doors opened. Dr. Velasquez stepped out, his eyes rimmed red. He removed his mask slowly. I didn't need him to speak. I knew. "We did everything we could," he said. "I'm so sorry." They let me into the room after they removed the machines. The lights were low. The smell of antiseptic clung to everything. Aiden was still. He looked peaceful, like he had just fallen asleep after a long game. His jersey was torn, stained with blood. His hand, my God, his hand was still warm when I touched it. I broke. The tears came like a flood I couldn't dam. I held that hand with both of mine, whispering every word I never said enough. "I'm so proud of you. You were always enough. You were mine." My sobs shook the quiet room. No one came in. No one told me to leave. Maybe they understood what it meant for a mother to lose the child who had been her reason for waking up every morning. Somewhere down the hall, a cart squeaked past. Life continued, but not for us. Not here. Later that evening, a young police officer approached with a plastic evidence bag. Officer Daniels, the same one who had called me. He looked barely 20, his face pale with grief he didn't have the training to carry. "We recovered his phone, ma'am," he said softly, "and this." He handed me a smaller bag, the shattered remains of a perfume bottle. The label was still partially visible, Rose de Minuit. A faint scent clung to the glass like a ghost. I nodded and whispered, "Thank you." The officer stepped back. Surveillance footage confirmed it. Aiden pushed the boy away just as the car came flying through the lot. A red sports car, loud music, some kind of street stunt. Drift challenge, I think they call it. His voice cracked. He saved that child's life. Caleb. I clutched the perfume to my chest, the glass biting into my palm. I didn't care. It wasn't until hours later, after the hospital had quieted, after the shock had started to numb my limbs, that I powered on Aiden's phone. The lock screen flickered once, then glowed. A message, still unread. Hope she likes the perfume. I stared at it, numb. Even in his final hours, he was thinking of someone else, not himself, not the pain. Just whether his gift would make Amanda smile. I crumbled. There is a grief so large it doesn't fit in your body. It spills out of your bones, leaks from your silence. You carry it in the way you breathe, the way you sit too still, the way your hands can't hold coffee cups the same way anymore. And in that moment, I knew one thing. I would never be the same again. Aiden's hand had still been warm when I held it. That was the cruelest part. For a fleeting second, something inside me believed he might squeeze back, maybe stir, maybe blink, maybe open his mouth and ask what happened. But then the warmth faded, slowly, like the final embers of a fire, and there was only silence. I sat in the hallway of UPMC's second floor for what felt like hours, clutching the pieces of him the world allowed me to keep, his cracked phone and the shattered perfume bottle. A faint, sugary scent still clung to the glass like a ghost. I couldn't bring myself to let go of either. The hallway was quiet except for the soft squeak of nurses' sneakers and the distant hum of monitors. A kind social worker had handed me a blanket and a paper cup of water. I said thank you. I don't remember drinking. My phone buzzed in my lap. I didn't want to look, but I did anyway. Amanda. Ugh. So awkward. Everyone asked where you were. The mood totally died after 5 o'clock. I stared at the message. Then at the time, it was sent. 5:43 p.m., roughly half an hour after Aiden's heart had stopped. I powered off my phone, not because I was angry. I simply didn't have space in my body for that kind of noise. The next day, I began calling funeral homes. I didn't want anything grand, just something simple, something he would have liked. Maybe white flowers, maybe his favorite song playing quietly. Nothing showy, no hashtags. Amanda, of course, had other ideas. He was young and loved, she said over speakerphone, her voice a mix of conviction and desperation. We should have it at Laurel Ridge Chapel. They've got beautiful lighting for photos. Photos? I asked flatly. For memories, Jules. For honoring. I pressed my forehead to the cold kitchen window pane. Outside, the lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks. No photographers, I said. But no. A silence hung between us. I ended the call before she could break it. The funeral was scheduled for Wednesday afternoon, 2 days after Aiden's death. I barely slept the night before. I found myself replaying old clips of his games on my laptop. His final shot, the buzzer beater against Riverside, the way his teammates rushed to hug him. I paused the footage on a frame where he smiled into the crowd. His eyes sparkled. I wanted to believe he had been looking for me. Maybe he had been. Amanda showed up late to the service. Her hair was unbrushed, her eyes swollen. No makeup. She wore a simple black cardigan and sneakers. For once she looked real. Human. She stood near the chapel entrance, trembling. When she stepped inside, Caleb turned his face toward the floor. She noticed. Her shoulders dropped. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Nancy sat beside me in the front pew, her gloved hands clasped tightly in her lap. She leaned toward me at one point and whispered, "You're still young, Julia. You'll be okay." I didn't respond. My ears filled with static. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was rage. I kept staring at the closed casket. Aiden's varsity jacket lay folded on top of it, his name embroidered on the sleeve. Amanda sobbed behind me, louder now. I didn't turn around. Someone handed me tissues. I didn't use them. The room was split, not by aisle or seating chart, but by something deeper. I could feel it. 2 worlds. Mine, hollowed by loss. Theirs, still orbiting around appearances. After the service, I didn't go to the reception Amanda insisted on hosting. I went home. The house felt colder than usual, not in temperature, but in spirit. Aiden's shoes still sat by the door. His basketball was on the floor near the couch. His smell lingered faintly on the hoodie tossed over the banister. I made tea and didn't drink it. I opened his phone again, even though I had memorized the last message. Hope she likes the perfume. I pressed my lips to the screen and closed my eyes. That night, I played the game footage again. Not the whole game, just the parts where he smiled. There was one moment during halftime where the camera panned past him on the bench. He wasn't looking at the coach or the scoreboard. He was looking down at Caleb, who was waving wildly from the 3rd row. Aiden smiled and gave him a thumbs up. I paused the video there. It was after midnight when Caleb walked into my room. I hadn't heard his footsteps. He stood quietly at the doorway, holding his stuffed bear by one ear. His voice was so small, I almost thought I imagined it. Aiden saved me. I turned to him, startled. It was the first thing he'd said since the hospital. He walked over and crawled into bed beside me. His head rested on my shoulder. He pushed me, he whispered. Said, "Get down, Caleb." Then he flew. My chest cracked open. I held him tightly. We didn't cry. There was no noise left in us. We just breathed. Together. Before falling asleep, I looked at Aiden's framed photo on my nightstand, the same one I'd placed at the funeral. His eyes seemed to look right through me, like he always had when he wanted me to read between the lines. I whispered into the quiet, "Then I'll save what Aiden loved." Amanda said, "I'm suffering too," while adjusting the ring light on her phone. That was the moment I realized we were still living in different worlds. She stood by her living room window, fussing with the soft halo of light aimed at her face. Her voice cracked just enough to suggest emotion, but not enough to ruin her mascara. I watched in silence as she tried to position her sorrow for the camera. "You know," she said, "it's been hard on Caleb too. The comments on my post were brutal." My eyes dropped to her phone, where her birthday photo still sat pinned at the top of her profile. Hundreds of hearts, flame emojis, and queen-style praise scrolled beneath the image. Caleb wasn't in any of them. Neither was Aiden. "I want to support you," Amanda added, "but I don't think tearing each other down is going to help." I didn't say anything. I just placed something on the table between us, the shattered perfume bottle. She stared at it. Her hand paused mid-swipe on the screen. "This is what your party cost me," I said quietly. The words weren't loud, but they echoed. She looked down at the glass, still faintly fragrant, edges dulled by time. The pink label was torn, but visible. Rose de Minuit. Amanda's throat moved as she swallowed. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "You didn't mean for him to die," I corrected gently, "but you meant to ignore him. All the times he carried your son, helped you, tried to make you feel noticed, and this was how you repaid him, with glitter and champagne and a perfectly timed boomerang." She sat down slowly, the ring light behind her flickering. Maybe it sensed the shift in atmosphere. Maybe it had better emotional instincts than she did. "I didn't know what to say," Amanda whispered. "I just froze. And then it felt too late. People were already sharing the post." I nodded, eyes dry now. "And yet, it's still up." Earlier that morning, Officer Daniels had visited me. He looked even younger in daylight, with a fresh haircut and a nervous smile. He carried a tablet and a manila envelope. "We got the footage from Ross Park's security team," he explained. "I wanted you to see it before the full report goes public." He handed me the tablet. I tapped play. The screen showed Aiden and Caleb walking through the lot. Aiden still in his basketball uniform carrying the Macy's bag. Caleb skipping beside him, holding a cone. Then came the roar. A red car burst onto the screen from the top right corner. Too fast, reckless. The sound of screeching tires made my stomach twist. In slow motion, I watched Aiden's head turn. He dropped the bag. He didn't run. He pushed Caleb, hard and fast, onto the patch of grass nearby. And then, I stopped the video. I couldn't watch the rest. He knew, I murmured. He had seconds, and he used them for someone else. Officer Daniels nodded, eyes lowered. We interviewed 3 witnesses. One woman called him a hero, said she'd never seen a teen move so fast or so selfless. I pressed a hand to my chest. Thank you for showing me. There's one more thing, he added, reaching into the envelope. From North Hills High. He placed a sealed letter in my hands. I'll give you a moment. Later, after Caleb's checkup at the hospital, I walked him back to his room in my house. He hadn't spoken much, just nodded when the nurse asked questions and stared out the window during the ride home. Before bed, I handed him a folded hoodie, the one he'd been wearing at the mall. It still had a faint stain near the cuff, but it was clean and soft. He took it carefully and hugged it to his chest. Want me to read tonight? I asked. He shook his head, but as I turned to leave, I heard him whisper. He told me to stay down. Then he smiled. I paused in the hallway, frozen. Before the car came, he smiled like he wasn't scared. I turned back and knelt beside him, brushing his hair back gently. Aiden was brave, sweet boy. He always smiled for you. Caleb's lip trembled. He reached for my hand and didn't let go. Back at Amanda's, the silence between us stretched. She finally picked up her phone, opened the app, and stared at her post. It hovered there, pristine and perfect, untouched by the grief that followed. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Do it, I said. Not for me, for him. She exhaled, then tapped delete. The ring light dimmed behind her, a soft flicker like a candle being snuffed out. And then she broke. Tears came fast and hard, smearing what was left of her foundation. She sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking, mascara staining her sleeves. I don't deserve to be his aunt, she choked. I made everything about me. For the first time, I didn't argue. She was right. But I sat beside her anyway. Because maybe this was what redemption started as. Not grand gestures, but the choice to finally sit in discomfort and own it. When I returned home, the letter from the school was still on the table. I opened it. Inside was a photo of Aiden in his uniform, smiling wide, arms draped around his teammates, and a formal statement. The North Hills High School Athletic Department, in partnership with the local community, is honored to announce the creation of the Aiden Bennett Memorial Scholarship. This fund will support students who demonstrate leadership, compassion, and resilience, just as Aiden did every day. I folded the letter slowly, tears blurring the ink. Some fractures, I realized, didn't break us apart. They opened space for truth to bleed out. And once it did, maybe, just maybe, something stronger could grow in its place. I don't think that's true. Time doesn't fix grief. It doesn't patch the hole. It just carves out a space, deep enough for love and pain to sit together, like 2 mismatched chairs at the same table. And somehow, you learn to live with both. Memorial Day weekend arrived with soft winds and blooming dogwoods. The scent of fresh-cut grass wafted through the open kitchen window as I flipped pancakes. Again. This time, I added whipped cream. Not because anyone asked, just because I remembered. Outside, Caleb dribbled a basketball against the driveway. He was taller now, almost as tall as Aiden had been that last spring. He wore his practice jersey, number 23, with quiet pride. The number wasn't just stitched in cloth. It lived on his back like a promise. Tryouts went well, I asked when he came in for water. He grinned. Coach said I've got the hustle. Still need to work on free throws. He wiped sweat from his forehead with the hem of his shirt, and for a moment I saw a flash of Aiden in the way he stood, shoulders back, chin lifted. "I think he'd be proud," I said. Caleb didn't answer right away. He just smiled shyly and grabbed another pancake. Later that morning, we drove to Ross Township Cemetery. Amanda met us there. She wore jeans and a plain navy blouse. No sparkles, no filters, just herself. She held a bouquet of sunflowers and set them down gently beside the headstone. Nancy arrived next, moving slower than she used to. Her cane tapped softly against the stone path as she approached. In her other hand, she carried a mason jar of wildflowers, freshly cut. I watched as she knelt beside Aiden's grave, arranging them carefully, one bloom at a time. She hadn't missed a week. Rain or snow, she came. "It still doesn't feel real sometimes," she whispered to me. "I know. But I've been helping at the community nursing center, Tuesdays and Thursdays." Her eyes glistened. "I talk to people who've lost someone. It helps." I nodded. "That's good, Mom." Amanda joined us. She stood in silence for a long moment, then reached into her tote bag and pulled out a laminated page, Caleb's recent school report. "I thought it should be read here," she said. Caleb stepped forward and unfolded the paper. "My name is Caleb Taylor. I'm in 7th grade at North Hills Middle School. My future dream is to become a paramedic, because Aiden Bennett saved my life. He told me to stay down, and he smiled. He wasn't afraid. He cared more about me than himself. I want to be someone who helps people the way he did. That's my dream." The wind caught the corner of the page. Amanda placed a rock over it gently. No one said anything for a long time, but no one needed to. That afternoon, we hosted a barbecue. It was the first time I'd opened the backyard since everything. The grill sizzled, kids played cornhole in the grass, and someone brought deviled eggs that disappeared too quickly. It wasn't perfect. The folding chairs were mismatched, and the lemonade had too much pulp. But it was warm, alive. Coach Simmons stopped by briefly, bringing a framed photo of last season's team. "Thought you'd want this," he said. "We all wore number 23 patches the week after. The boys still talk about him." I placed the photo near the lemonade pitcher. Later, the principal of North Hills High gave a short speech before handing a scholarship certificate to a shy senior girl in a red dress. Her name was Talia. Her mom had tears in her eyes as she clutched her daughter's hand. "This scholarship," the principal said, "is for students who lead with heart, who lift others. Aiden did that in the classroom and beyond. He is not forgotten." Applause broke out, not loud but sincere. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I gathered everyone for one last thing. "Before we end today," I said, holding a glass of sweet tea, "I want to thank you all for being here, not just today, but over this past year. You helped carry me through the darkest season of my life." I paused, my voice catching slightly. Aiden didn't just save a life. He reminded us what it means to care, to show up, to protect what matters, even if it's hard. I raised my glass. "To the ones who love quietly but fiercely, and to those we carry forward." Everyone clinked their drinks. Amanda dabbed her eyes, no mascara to smear. Nancy smiled through tears. Caleb leaned his head against my shoulder. After most guests left, Amanda, Caleb, and I stayed behind in the garden. Together, we planted a small sapling, a sugar maple, in the corner near the fence. "For him," I said as we pressed soil around the roots. Caleb added, "So he'll always have shade here." Amanda didn't say anything, but she placed her hand on the tree's slender trunk and then on mine. And for the first time in years, we stood quietly, together, without needing to fix anything, just breathing the same air, letting it carry what words could not. As twilight painted the sky in muted oranges and blues, Caleb pointed upward. A single cloud had split, revealing a sliver of golden light. "I think he would have liked today," he said. I looked up too, and I believed him. As I watched Caleb laugh in the backyard under the young maple tree we planted for Aiden, I realized grief hadn't left me. It had simply made room for love to return in a quieter way. In this life, we don't get to choose every moment, but we do choose how we carry the ones we lose. Aiden's kindness taught me that saving someone isn't always about big gestures. It's about showing up, caring deeply, and leaving something better behind. If we listen closely, even in silence, the ones we've lost still guide us, through memories, through the people they touched, through the love they inspired. If this story spoke to you, I'd be honored to hear your thoughts. Sometimes sharing our own stories is the first step toward healing.